Hi everyone, we might grab a seat and get going. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today and welcome to Tourism Australia's industry briefing. I'm Bede Fennell. I look after corporate affairs in the Tourism Australia team, reporting into Pip, our MD, and I look after the government team, the media and comms team, and the various industry teams, some of whom you'll hear from today. A special call out, I guess, to someone on my team. We have recently had joined with us a head of Indigenous Affairs on the industry team, Phil Lockyer, who's just down the front here. He's a Noongar Western Australian man, so it's great to have an industry briefing here in his home turf. And I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Whadjuk Noongar people here on their country on the Swan River, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And in addition to welcoming you, I'd also like to acknowledge that we have two of our Western Australian board members with us today who probably need no introduction to you, but we have Bradley Woods and Alex Burt as well. And both of those will be here with us for the session and also at the drinks afterwards. So if you don't know them, make sure you track them down and have a chat to them. Now, we're doing a series of industry briefings around the country. So over the next 6 months, we'll be going to every capital city and a lot of the regions as well. And you're the second cab off the rank. We were in Cairns a couple of weeks ago. We're in Broome tomorrow. And in a couple of weeks, we're in Canberra. So being our second one, at the end of today, we'll ask you for a bit of feedback. And please come up to any of the TA team and tell us what you heard that you liked or you'd like to hear more of, because we want to make sure that when we have these sessions, and we try to keep it to 90 minutes, they're of value add to all of you and help you work in with us at Tourism Australia. So just to give you an idea of the session for today, we'll start off with an industry update, then we'll hear from Pip, our MD, then we'll talk about our marketing and distribution, a little bit about working with TA, an update from Tourism WA, and then some Q&A to ask questions at the end. So with that, we might move to our first speaker, and I'd like to welcome up Lee Sorensen. Lee is the GM of Industry Relations at Tourism Australia. He's worked in the industry for a long time and got a lot of experience. He's worked at TA for 10 plus years, and his team travel around the country talking to industry so that we can hear from you what's important, how we can work better for you and with you, and so that we can feedback what's of concern to you through to government and other stakeholders. So he's going to come and give us a bit of an update on how he's seeing things from his perspective across the country at the moment, and some of the things we're doing at TA in the industry support space.
Yeah, thanks, Bede. And I know quite a few of you in the room, not all of you, but thanks for coming along this afternoon. Once again, I'm just going to quickly give you a quick 5 or 6 minutes about industry relations, who we are, what we're doing, some of the insights as Bede mentioned, and a couple of points on some support initiatives we've got going on at the moment. So yes, that's me. Connecting the industry with Tourism Australia, that's our little catch cry for our team within the organisation. This is who we are. Most important person for all of you to know is Sophie, who's down the front here. Sophie has been doing this role for about a year now, replacing someone who you probably do know, Christy, there, who went on maternity leave, came back from maternity leave to tell us that she was pregnant again, is about to go back on maternity leave. So Sophie's hanging around for a bit longer, and we'll be looking after WA, most importantly for all of you in the room. So you'll hear a bit about, you'll hear from her. But then in the other states, and there may well be some national operators here, it's important you know people like Dom. If you're in the youth sector, Christy will be in that, looking after the youth area for the next 4 months while she's still here. And then myself looking after national operators and the key national industry associations. In terms of our actual role and what we're doing, industry engagement and industry support are really the two key elements of our function at Tourism Australia. So that's stakeholder manager, industry insights, which I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, something that we've just done and have some industry insights there. Sophie's going to get up and talk about educating you all about Tourism Australia in the sense of what programs and platforms you can work with. And then the industry support role, that capacity building and education, and importantly some marketing and distribution support. I'm going to talk about a marketing support initiative that we have going on at the moment. And it all fits under the strategic pillar of Tourism Australia in terms of being a unifying voice for industry. So in a normal world, this is what we'd be doing. We'd be out and about. That's the sort of how many meetings we have around the country in a pre-COVID world, you know, attending 64 destinations, conferences, presenting to this many people. We haven't probably got to that many conferences in the last year, but we have done a lot virtually. I think we're probably up close to that in terms of the number of meetings we're holding. We're all getting sick of looking at a computer screen, as I'm sure most of you are as well. And it's so great to be back here in a sort of face-to-face environment, or with masks on. One of the things we do is in terms of industry insights that I touched on there, one of the things we do is some research with our both RTOs and key stakeholders. So we go out to about 800 industry every 3 or 4 months and ask them a bunch of questions about how they're feeling. We've just recently completed, literally yesterday, over the last 2 weeks, a survey of 50 regional tourism bodies around the country. This is some of the results that have just come through from that, and I'll talk to you and tick about what some of their key issues are. I guess the key point about these slides here, or this slide, is what it shows you there is, certainly in terms of domestic sentiment, everyone is feeling a lot more confident than they were 10 months ago or so when we did our first one. That's that top line on the domestic side there. So people are feeling a lot more confident both the next few months and into the future. The best score you can get here is 100 on the left-hand axis there. The worst is minus 100. So domestic looking good. The industry sentiment, which is reflected in these RTO sentiment here in terms of international though, a totally different story, and I guess we're all seeing what's going on around the rest of the world at the moment. And many of you, and of course many of the RTOs reflecting that, we're actually seeing the international sentiment go backwards at the moment. That's that yellow line that you can see over there on the other slide. Biggest issue at the moment, as we went around the country and asked all these RTOs, what's the biggest issue in your region? Again, reflecting what the industry's telling them, it's all about labour shortages at the moment. So when we last did this, or when I did one in September, these surveys, labour was about number 7 or 8 of key issues that people said they were facing, now number 1 by a country mile. The other interesting one I think that's changed is that back in September when we did this, the conclusion of government assistance was about number 3 in terms of most important issues facing them. There was the looming JobKeeper thing, which then was about 6 months away. Now, for whatever reason, and I'm slightly perplexed about this one, we'll dig a bit deeper, but that ceasing of government assistance is now about the 9th most significant issue. So it's really dropped away. So I don't know whether people just got used to the new world or what's happening there, but certainly that's some of the interesting insights that we're seeing around the country at the moment. And some of that's reflected in the commentary we get in these surveys. So we get commentary from all of these RTOs. So, you know, I've only put some of the key ones up there, but these comments I've put up here loosely reflect what pretty much everyone was saying. It's all about staff. It's all about affordable housing for staff in a lot of destinations around the country. Operators not being able to operate to capacity because they can't find the staff to operate to capacity. And of course, we know anyone who's internationally focused, like tour operators, one of those highlighted areas there, are struggling at the moment. So any of those experiences or destinations that are heavy on the international visitation are struggling. But labour shortages was really what came up very strongly. In terms of industry support, I'm going to talk about an initiative that we've got going on, the National Experience Content Initiative. But first, a couple of things that we do to support the industry in other areas. One is the National Tourism Awards. We're a big supporter of these, have been for the last 16 years, working with ATIC and all the state TICs, including the WA TIC over here, of course. Mostly we're a big supporter at the National Awards and a smaller supporter at the state awards, but very big on this industry recognition of the people who are doing this well and lifting people up. And we're talking with ATIC at the moment about how we can more highly promote those who are doing a good job across all our platforms and win the award winners, I mean. And then we also work very closely with ATEC, so the TIC and the TEC, on all these programs. So, you know, India hosts, Japan hosts, which I think TWA got off the ground here with ATEC originally. We've rolled this out globally, nationally with them. We've also just launched a Japan host program with them. We'll have a Korea host coming up, and then in the pipeline, Indonesia host and Muslim host as well. So that's that capability building and education. So keep your eyes open for those if you're not already involved with them. And now, just to finish, I want to talk about one of our key initiatives that's come out this year, the National Experience Content Initiative. When we were looking around last year at what can we be doing to best support the industry, one of the ideas that was put forward is that we know we've got a lot of great imagery about destinations, great imagery on landscapes, but what we often don't do, Tourism Australia this is, and when we go out there and shoot, we don't get into products and do a lot of development of assets at a product level. And we know when we look at sadly, when we look at a lot of people's websites, when we look at the content that's on things like ATDW, it isn't real good. So one of the initiatives that we have put up, and working with our state and territory partners and also the regional tourism organisations, is this National Experience Content Initiative. So this is about going into products and developing assets for them that they can use in the promotion of their businesses. So we plan to do about 1,800 products in every region of the country over the next 14 months. We've been doing a trial on the Gold Coast. We're just about to launch into the first region in Cairns, and then we'll be rolling that out around the country. We hope to get over to WA in the first quarter of the new financial year, and I'd imagine we'll be in Perth sometime in that period. But importantly, we're working with TWA on that one, so we've got some conversations that we need to have there about when exactly we'll be introducing that. But in terms of what these looks like, each operator who is a part of this, so the 1,800 operators, will get 200 images. They'll get 40 polished images for themselves to use, and then they get a 1-minute video clip, which I'm about to show you two now, that they can use in their own platforms, in their social media, and so on. Might need to just crank up a bit of volume there, thanks.
What I'm passionate about is introducing people to our aquatic environment. What we do when someone comes to surf, we start off with just a very simple explanation and demonstration on land. Then we practice, we get it right on the land, and then we jump into the surf. We're really lucky here in this little part of the coast where we've got a whole range of really good, high-quality waves. One of the coolest things is just that look you see in someone's eyes and in their face when they've caught that wave, that first wave, they've jumped up nicely, they're riding that wave, and that's the stoke that is so cool to see in their eyes when it's just like, wow, we did that. They've now got that stoke and that love of doing something in the ocean.
And one more. So these are obviously from the trial on the Gold Coast.
We built this distillery for one reason and one reason only, and that was to tell my grandfather's life story. We're storytellers that just happen to make some of the best spirits in the world. We're located here on the Gold Coast, just a 2-minute walk to North Burleigh Beach. Our distillery experience is a full experience. You get to learn everything about our distillery, how we make our spirits. You have a chat with some friendly people, and you go home that night with your own 500ml bottle of gin that you've made, you've labelled, and you've bottled. It's a true experience. You know enough after this experience to go home and make your own spirit at home. You learn that much. It's like an exploration. It will touch every sense that you have. The #1 feedback we get from people from around the world is that when you leave Grandad Jack's, you feel like you're now a part of the family.
So what we hope with all those is not only will it benefit those particular operators who get to be a part of it, but it will also go onto RTO sites, it will go onto STO sites, it will go onto our platforms, and importantly, as I mentioned at the start, it will go up onto ATDW. So it really is a project we've had enormously good feedback about, from the local state level, at a regional level, and of course within our own organisation. So looking forward to working with you guys on that, and you'll hear more about that as we start to roll it out over here. That's it from me. Welcome you back up, Beat.
Okay, next up we'll call up Pip, our MD. Pip's been the MD of Tourism Australia for just over 18 months now. I think she was with TA for about 3 years prior, looking after the international teams. And she's, I guess, been our rock, leading our organisation through the changes, and is a really fierce advocate of industry in the government forums that we attend and the media. So welcome her up to give a bit an update on, I think, some of the insights we have and some of the trends that we're seeing emerging. Yeah. Well done.
Is I get to take my mask off for a little bit. But everybody, Kaya Wanju Wanju. Hello and a very warm welcome to you all. It's so good to be back in Perth, and this is the first time that I've been here since December 2019, when we finished our trifecta of Tourism Australia events in Perth that year. It was a great year. We did Corroboree, we did ATE of course, and then we finished up with Dreamtime. And so it's so lovely to be back. And I would like to also start by acknowledging the traditional owners on whose land we meet today. That is the Whadjuk Noongar people. We're here on their budja, their land, their country, on the banks of the Durbal Yerrigan, which is the Swan River. I want to also extend that respect to all the 14 clans of the Noongar Nation and Aboriginal people from here and other parts of Western Australia, and indeed all of Australia. They are the custodians of country and culture for over 50,000 years, due to their resilience and due to their ability to innovate. What am I doing? Turn it on? Okay. I'll do this bit here. Okay, sorry. Excuse me. I was doing my welcome to country. But as an industry, I believe that there's more that we can do to listen to collaborate with, and build authentic partnerships with Aboriginal peoples, including the Noongar community. And as you know, it does deepen the tourism experience, it enriches our community, and it builds a greater sense of pride for all of us as Australians. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the strategy setup. Who of you were in Geraldton earlier this week? Okay, a few of you, bear with me. There's a couple of slides that I'm going to show you again, but I do think it's important just to tell you kind of why we've done what we've done over the last 14 months. And then I've got the whole team here today, so you're going to hear from a variety of people on just a little bit of the detail around what we've been doing. So I'm going to kick off with the campaign that we launched today. So we have the Holiday Here This Year campaign rolling out domestically, and this is the next iteration of it, which is Epic Adventures, and we just launched this morning. So hot off the press, here is our latest TV commercial featuring Hamish and Zoe, which is really speaking about getting out and spending more and going further, which is what international travellers do and what a lot of our industry is really, really missing. And the great thing about this is that it really does speak to WA's strengths, you know, and your wide open spaces and just the epic adventures that you can have in WA. So take a look.
Oh, Australia. No one loves the big things more than me. The big pineapple, the big banana, big potato, prawny. But I reckon we can find an even bigger big thing.
Bigger?
Much bigger. All right, what about the big barrier reef?
Oh, great.
Oh, she's big. The big
terrestrial ecosystem.
tree place.
We were after big, right?
Sorry, what were you saying?
Gosh.
Look at this.
The big red
Wondrousness.
catchy.
Yep. Big! 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 Wow.
Do you recognise that place?
Aw, look at the little one.
He's got a big heart. You know, Zoe, I reckon Australia is the big thing.
Yep.
Let's go big, Australia, because there's nothing bigger or better than a holiday here.
Voila, there you go. So that just launched today, and Susan Coghill, our CMO, is going to come on a little bit later and talk to you about the why and how that fits into our domestic program of activity. And as I said in Geraldton, we are going to be focused today not on what has been, but what we are going to do about the situation that we find ourselves in. And so we really are taking quite a positive bent on today, and you know, we think that that is important. We think it's important that we work to what we can do with what we have, if that makes sense. And so, you know, I just wanted to do that in the context of, I understand that this has been a really tricky couple of months for everybody in this room. If you had a very internationally reliant business, you really did struggle with, you know, how do you find other audiences? But also, you know, even if you are having your best year ever, you know, Lee just showed a really compelling slide to show that labour shortages aren't just a WA thing; they're actually a national issue, and so there is a lot of issues out there. We're not halfway through this marathon. We still have a little bit of a ways to go, but we will, you know, work to make the most of this and to do what we can. But this is a little video that I like to start with, and it was us going out to the industry to describe in their words how they found 2020.
So look, in one word, you know, 2020 has all been about coping.
2020 in one word, frustrating.
I describe 2020 in one word as foreign. None of us have lived through a pandemic before. It was really difficult to understand how it was going to turn out.
I'd say challenging, but good challenging. I was talking to one of the team about this yesterday, and yeah, there was always light at the end of the tunnel. There was always hope that we were going to come through this period.
It's opportunity. Having that amount of time it just doesn't come along. So having time to be able to use for any way that you thought would be the most effective.
2021 word, I would say Zoom.
Challenging.
Relentless.
Rediscovery.
Auspicious.
If I had to describe 2020 in one word, rubbish. Rubbish year.
Surreal, because watching the industry start to shut down for the first time, I never thought I would ever see that coming, and I never thought I would see some of the things that have happened.
I think crisis would be a reasonable word. So yeah, we deal with it, but yeah, it's a crisis for many, many people.
Sad.
Challenging.
Adaptive.
For me, one word to describe 2020 is really just an awakening.
So there you go, all the way from awakening to rubbish, and it shows just the range of experiences that people have had through this thing. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit now is as our response and how we have managed this, because I think, you know, you would not have looked back 18 months ago and foreseen that we would be in this situation where global travel has just completely shut down. And so I think we've all been navigating how we get through this, and Tourism Australia is exactly the same as that. And I also wanted to acknowledge Bradley Woods and Alex Burt, who are part of the Tourism Australia board, who've really just helped guide us through what has been just a really interesting and difficult time. And, you know, I can tell you that there's really good WA representation on the board, and they represent not only the tourism industry, but also WA very well. But when we were going through this crisis, apart from having, I think, 20 board meetings last year in comparison to the usual 6, we were making really fast decisions every single day. First when we were dealing with the bushfire crisis, and then when we were dealing with the unfolding COVID-19 crisis that was rolling out around the world. And we were having to make lots and lots of really quick and imperfect decisions. And each of the markets that we worked in, both domestically on a state-by-state basis, but also the 16 markets that we worked in around the world, were all all in different states of flux. And so we needed to really think about how we would respond to this crisis and how we would do that market by market. And we found that this framework was really, really useful in terms of doing that. And because we're a marketing organisation, it really is around where is the consumer sentiment and what is the right activity for us in that market at that time, just to make sure that the tone and timing of our message was completely right. And so there was 4 stages that we really looked at. The first one being, you know, when people are in panic, they're really just thinking about survival and getting essential supplies, and they're not really thinking about where am I going to holiday this year. And then when they are in lockdown, and we still have many countries around the world that are still in lockdown at the moment, and you know, a shout out to our colleagues in India, because they are doing it so tough at the moment. And when they're in lockdown, once they've worked out, you know, how they're going to get through this period, they start dreaming. And that's where we came in again with, you know, people have restricted movement, they're not being able to go anywhere or do anything, but they are fantasizing and dreaming about what they're going to do when they come out. So in that time, what would be the right message for us to give them? We're not going to say, hey, there's a $9.99 deal to Australia right now. That's not appropriate, but you can dream and you can plan, and that's what we did under restricted movement. In rising optimism, when, you know, borders were starting to open, and we're talking domestically here, but then also, you know, perhaps over-optimistically internationally, you know, what activity is appropriate then? You know, people are then starting to actively plan and book, and that's when we did kick in with our partnership with Hamish and Zoe and kicked off with our first planning campaign. And then when there's free movement, what does that new reality look like? What does free movement look like, and what is appropriate at that time? And you can see there's a conversion funnel along the bottom. And that sort of shows at the top, you know, filling up the funnel, dreaming about an Australian holiday, going through, talking about experiences, and then converting. And so we found this really useful because it really helped us decide what activity we were going to do in each market and when. And we found that we've gone backwards and forwards along that continuum. And it's really just been a very useful tool. So I just thought I'd share that with you. The other thing that we have found this year is that we have had to really just fish where the fish are and work out what the opportunity is to support the industry. Our job is to drive people through your doors, and obviously that's been a little bit of a challenge over the last couple of months, or 15 months now. And so we went back into domestic for the first time. We got some additional funding from the government. We repurposed some of our international funds, and we went back into the domestic market. And that was really quite a reactive move. We won't be in domestic forever. We will be in it for a period of time to really try and drive and make sure all of this money and savings and pent-up demand for tourism experiences is actually being spent, and people aren't deciding to maybe renovate their house or buy a car instead. So I think there's still a job to be done there, even though there is some pent-up demand, and also building confidence. You know, we've had a few setbacks this week and even today again. So it's really important that we continue to do that. But as the National Tourism Organisation, it's also important that we keep true to our purpose and we keep the demand for Australian travel internationally alive when our commercial partners are unable to do so, because they have to focus on converting business where they can convert business. And it's great that TWA are also maintaining their international presence in the markets that they're present in, and we are certainly committed to keeping our offices open and keeping our teams talking about Australia so that they're nice and warm, and when we do have an opportunity to convert that demand, we are able to do so. So this is what we're going to focus on in 2022, in the next financial year. So I've talked a little bit about driving opportunistic conversion in the short term. And part of that is around being ready and planned and prepared for market should they open. And so we have plans for all of our markets. I hope we get to use some over the next 12 months, but you can see that with New Zealand, we had 2 days notice. The bubble was announced on the Tuesday, and we're in market with a TVC on Thursday. And that's what we need to do. We need to be there, and we need to be ready to convert that business as soon as it comes. So that's the plan for all of our markets. And then we are driving long-term demand. But in the middle, there's some stuff that we need to do to be prepared for reopening. And this really is all about international and making sure that we stay strong as an international destination for the future, because that time will come. It takes a long time to dream about, plan, and book a holiday to a long-haul destination. So the business that we're working on right now is 22, 23, and making sure that we are there to be able to convert that business. So expediting the recovery of aviation and distribution is really important. Our distribution partners around the world are doing it pretty tough as well, as you can imagine. But we have been really reaching out, keeping them close, making sure that our product stays in their brochures and on their websites, and make sure that their teams are well trained. And Robin's going to show you some great stats around our Aussie Specialist Training Program and just how engaged our distribution partners have been around the world as well. So I won't steal his thunder on that stat, but it's a really, really great one. And it just shows that people are taking this time when they have a little bit of time to keep connected with us, to keep connected with you. And thank you to so many of you who have participated in our virtual Australian marketplaces. It's been really great to have that engagement. And I can tell you that our buyers offshore have really, really appreciated that engagement. I know that there is a little bit of frustration with them. They just don't understand why we're making some of the decisions that we do, but we're just there, and we're just, talking them through the why. And I think, in the long term, it's going to mean that we are a really attractive destination. Aviation is a really important one. It's really important that we work with our airports and our state partners on rebuilding aviation. It's 95% down. We had been doing really well in aviation. We'd hit our 2020 goals a couple of years early. We had 27 million seats coming into Australia every year, and that has dropped off to 95% down, and a lot of those flights are supported. So it's going to be a journey to rebuild that business, and it's something that we are thinking about right now and focusing on for when the time is right. Being a platform for industry, Lee talked you through some of the things that we're doing to really step up in this space. It's important that you know that, as a demand agency for the federal government, our job is to really work in that space. And so that's why we've come up with things like the National Experience Content Initiative, because it is about driving demand when the time is right. So we will continue to look at ideas like that and look at programs that do support you. And if you have any thoughts on that, the team are here and really would love to hear from you. Business events is really important. It's a really long-term proposition from the international space, much longer than leisure. So our bid fund program is live. We've extended that for another year, and that's around supporting big events to come in to Australia. And we're still getting inquiries from that every week. So that's really good. People are still planning to come to Australia in coming years. And it's a really important sector for us. It's worth 15% of our inbound business, so not insignificant. And Robin's going to take you through some of the activity that we're doing, both internationally, but also we are in the domestic space as well at the moment. And elevate and champion Indigenous tourism. It's important, it's always been important to us. It's an incredibly unique selling proposition. We are, we have 60,000 years of continuous culture. We're the oldest living culture in the world, and I just think that we have a real opportunity to tell that story. And it's really great that Phil is here, and I hope you liked my Noongar language. It was the first time I've ever done it, so it's the first. So thank you to Phil. But Phil's joined us to really help us take our engagement to the next level. And then sustainable travel. So driving the awareness of and capability of sustainable travel is something that's important. It was important prior to 2019. It was something that consumers were telling us that they want to see more and more of. And we think that the crisis has really accelerated this as a consumer desire. A lot of you are doing some awesome work in that space, and our job is to tell your stories in that sector. And we just think that that's going to be, it's going to be more and more important to people going forward. And then in terms of the long-term demand and generation, we've finished our 2020 goals. That concluded in December, obviously. We're looking now at what does a long-term strategy to 2030 look like. I think sitting here today, writing a strategy for 10 years from now is probably, you know, it's probably going to change a little bit, and the government is looking, therefore, unlike the 2020 strategy where it was a bit of a set it now and then let's see how we go, I think it's going to be a much more iterative process this time, but we are going to be very involved in that. And this is a slide that's, it's some work that we did with the Boston Consulting Group, and when we were looking at, you know, where should we be playing, what should we be doing, we were really, we couldn't plan to historical data because I think that's all just off the table now. So we were looking at how can we plan, what can we look at, and we worked with the Boston Consulting Group to help us look at leading indicators rather than lagging indicators. So we always looked at, you know, numbers from China are growing by 15% a year, so therefore we'll project China out like that. I just think that that's going to be hard to do right now. So we worked with the Boston Consulting Group, and they came up with 5 scenarios for us, and it really does. We sort of don't know where we're going to land because this changes all the time. But the 5 scenarios are very optimistically that there will be a rapid normalization. We will open up our borders, everybody will be vaccinated and start traveling again. And according to them, if we do succeed there, we will, by the end of 22, have recovered to about 50% or more of our pre-COVID-19 numbers into Australia. And then the worst case scenario is just the crisis continues to roll along and we have less than 10% international business by the end of 2022. Where we sit is somewhere in the middle. They are really just the 2, I guess, bookends. And where we sit is, you know, there's number 2 is bubbles opening fast. Number 3 is a slow, careful recovery. And number 4 is the world is more open and Australia is more closed. I think where we stand today, we're probably heading a little bit towards number 4, but we are really working. And that's what we're planning for, because I think you have to plan for the worst and then hope for the best and have a plan to really step it up if you can. So we are really hoping to, you know, get to 2 or 3 by the end of 2022. But it just has helped frame our thinking and what decisions we make from there. And then just in the domestic market, Lee has talked a little bit about sentiment. We track sentiment every 2 weeks. Consumer sentiment is so volatile at the moment that it changes. One good thing, and this speaks to how well we have managed the crisis, is that consumer confidence is growing every single day. And as of December last year, it went into positive territory. So anything above 100 is positive consumer sentiment. And a lot of that is around how we have handled the crisis and how everybody is doing economically. If you look at then travel intent as you know, borders open and close, you do find that that jumps around a little bit more because people are concerned about getting stuck. And in fact, we found in our research that people are more concerned about getting stuck and border closures than they are actually about catching the virus itself. And that is backed up by Qantas research, it's backed up by Australian Airport Association research as well. So it is just something to bear in mind, and I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't know. This is some Deloitte numbers. They did a projection, and the top line is kind of the mildest case of domestic tourism recovery, and the bottom line is the worst case as far as they can see in terms of domestic travel and how that's going to recover. The line there, that's where we are at the moment. You can see that we're doing better than they projected, so we're just slightly above the mild line. So domestic tourism is recovering. Every time there is an incident, though, there is, you know, it just goes back a little bit. You know, we look at forward bookings. So we have a tool called Forward Keys, and it just looks at all the forward searches and forward bookings for a particular week. And last week it was down 48% for WA, but before that it had been really improving, and we will see it improve again. And as the responses to outbreaks become more mild, we will see that continuing to improve. So domestic tourism is going okay. I think we still have a job to do within that kind of big, broad bucket that we call domestic tourism, because there are some companies and organisations that are just having their best year ever, and then there are others that are just really still hanging on by their fingernails. And so what we're doing and how we work in with Tourism Western Australia is that we focus on the areas of market failure. So, you know, we do campaigns around places that really need support. So cities, Perth City, we know how hard it is for accommodation and experiences in Perth City. And we are, you know, so we have had a city campaign, we have another one coming. We know that experiences aren't getting the same love that accommodation is, even in destinations that are really busy. And we know that more far-flung, internationally reliant destinations are hurting. So that's really around, you know, where we kind of place our effort, if you'd like. And you can see that domestic tourism is getting back, but it's still not back to normal. So this side is 2019 numbers, and that side is 2020 numbers. So we're getting there, but we still have a little ways to go. The other thing that we focus on is business events, and so we do a dip into the market every 3 months with business events, and we speak to companies about what their plans are in terms of holding an event within the next period of time. So we speak to companies and ask them, you know, are you going to hold an event within the next 3 months, 4 to 6 months, 7 to 11, 12 to 18, and then more than 18 months from now. So you can see that not many are planning events in the next 3 months. They are a little bit more, I guess, risk averse than leisure consumers are. And this is interstate trips, by the way. So 25% of them are planning one in the next 3 months, but that does ratchet up. And so you see a recovery there. So that is good. It's going in the right direction. Then in international markets, we have a long-term consumer demand project, and we survey our key markets every 6 months just to see how, you know, what's driving consumer demand for holidays, and how does Australia position itself against its competitors as well. And you can see there that Australia does do quite well with safety and security. We took a little bit of a dive in this last round. I think a lot of that is around our distance from the rest of the world. But you know, by and large, we're doing pretty well in terms of safety and security, which is the #1 driver for holidays. People only want to go to places that are safe and secure. So it's a rational factor. It's not something that we market to because we try and appeal to the emotional connection with Australia, but it's just something that we need to bear in mind, and it's something that we're doing really well in. And then nature and wildlife. You can see there's been a real uptick for Australia. And with our other stats, we have seen that brand metrics for Australia for the first time in a long time have really taken a fairly significant uptick. And that is because, you know, we do have what the world wants at the moment. And this is a really interesting point for me. So anyone who works in international markets knows that there is a lot of desire for Australian experiences. People want to go there. When they're surveyed, what are the top, you know, 3 places in the world that you want to visit. Australia always comes up in that. But when it comes to actually getting on a plane, converting that business, all these rational factors of the time that it takes to get around, the distance we are from the rest of the world, and the cost of an Australian holiday mean that the conversion does really fall off. And that is something that hasn't changed for decades, certainly not all of the time that I've been working in tourism. But we think that now might be an inflection point where we really lean into that. You know, we lean into the fact that, you know, because we are such a large country, we are sparsely populated, because we're so far from anywhere, you know, we're isolated and we've managed this thing well, and the cost equation isn't as important anymore because we offer safety, but we also offer quality, incredible experiences as well. So when we look at going back into the world, we're going to embrace this rather than trying to kind of, you know, pretend that it doesn't exist. You know, this has actually really helped us, and I think it's positioning Australia really well into the future. So we are in all of our markets, as I said, maintaining a presence. Will we be in the same markets after this? I think so. Maybe we might dial up and dial down different, you know, our spend in markets as the opportunity presents itself. But I don't think that there's any markets that are sitting there on our doorstep waiting to be, you know, turned on to an Australian holiday. I think that these are the crucial markets for us. We might look at new markets as well. We're definitely, you know, haven't ruled that out, and we have a whole range. In that part of that BCG work was, you know, what markets potentially have come out of this as more of an opportunity for Australia. But we will make sure that we keep the lights on, that we're ready to go with plans as soon as we can open. And for the meantime, we're going to be in leisure marketing in New Zealand and leisure marketing in Australia in partnership with our states and our territories as well. So what's next for us? We are going to continue to roll out the plan as I just described it. The teams now are going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we've done, some of the stuff that we're planning. But I just wanted to finish my bit with this slide. So there is a lot of marketing, a lot of research out there on what does the consumer of the future look like. And some of that research is really showing behaviours that are of a moment, and some of it is going to be a lot, I guess, longer term permanent change. And we're just working through what that might look like and what the consumer of the future looks like. Our consumer demand project is going to help inform that. Our teams in market, our partners in market will help that as well. But some of the things that we think are going to be important, we think that domestic travel will continue to grow, and we are really working on some behaviour change in that market. So typically domestic consumers will have a couple of domestic holidays, they're sort of fly and flop type holidays, and then save up their big expensive annual holiday for somewhere, you know, far away and somewhere offshore and somewhere very glamorous. And we think that there's an opportunity now to really get Australians to fall back in love with their own backyard and you know, with the travel agent community, really turn Australians back on to some of the incredible epic adventures that we have here. So we think that, you know, domestic tourism is going to continue to grow. And in fact, before 2019, before COVID-19, it was growing faster than inbound was growing. So that will continue. Experience and value are going to be more important than ever. People have money, and my big rally cry for the industry is, as we're coming out of this, don't race to the bottom in terms of your prices. I think, you know, people value tourism experiences. They value going out and reconnecting with their friends and family. They value, you know, getting out and not being locked down. And so I think that if we hold firm, we will, you know, do really well from a yielding point of view as we come out of this. And travellers want to do the right thing. So that speaks to a little bit to the sustainability message that I was talking about. There's a lot of new trends coming out, and one of the ones that we find kind of interesting is this how work has permanently changed and how people have more flexibility now in working from anywhere. And we found, for example, that when Melbourne was in their deep lockdown, that a lot of Melbournians escaped to Darwin and spent 3 months working out of Darwin. A lot of the OTAs are telling us that the search for long stays is becoming a real thing. It was 26% of Booking.com's search out of India last month. So there is this real growing trend to longer stays and being able to work from anywhere. So what can we do with that, and what can product do with that? And is there some products that you can offer that really facilitate and help people do that? And I mean, now is the time to innovate, I think, is an obvious one. There's very few times when we have a standing start, particularly from an international point of view. So what do we want our product and our an Australian travel experience to be in the future? And I think we have an opportunity to stop and take a little bit of a breath, certainly in the international space, and think about that. Thank you. So I'm going to hand over now to Susan Coghill and Robin Mack, who are going to talk about just a little bit of the detail on our marketing and distribution programs. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. It's lovely to see you all. I know you're very busy in your business, so we really do appreciate you guys taking your time out to come spend 90 minutes with us. And it's good to be back here in Perth. I have to say, much like Pip, I haven't been here since late 2019. I realized earlier chatting with Kelsey, it was when we were filming Kylie with the quokkas, trying to make the quokkas famous in the UK. So I'm very happy to be back here. Landing with rainbows even, it was a beautiful day. So I'm going to talk a bit about our domestic and international marketing, and in a moment, Robin Mack will come up and join me to talk about distribution and business events. So I'm going to go ahead and first talk about domestic, which, as you guys know, is very much our focus at the moment. And our domestic strategy, which Pip alluded to earlier, is really about encouraging Australians who, would often in their own domestic holidays might only take short breaks or weekends away. What we want them to do is change the way that they travel. We want them to holiday like they do, like our international visitors do, or like they do when they themselves are overseas. So it is a bit of a behavior change that we've been trying to promote ever since we've gone back into the domestic market. And that journey has been quite busy, actually, over the last, 15 months certainly, but certainly over the last 9 or 10 months since we've been able to properly market domestically again. So we have been working hard to get Australians to start to move from thinking and dreaming and planning about their Australian holiday and really reframing the way that they think about those Australian holidays to actually booking more, doing more, and now, in fact, getting them to go further afield and experience those bucket list destinations. So the journey started in earnest with the next phase of our Holiday Here This Year campaign last October. As Pip indicated, we started this back during the bushfires, but we needed to refresh this messaging when we when we faced the next crisis last year of COVID-19. And what we did was we brought in a couple of ambassadors, in Hamish and Zoe, to help us tell our story. We intended for them to start off with this amazing epic road trip, but our plans were scuppered by the lockdowns that we saw up and down, in fact, all over the country. So we're very proud to be, and very happy to be finally getting them out and having that epic holiday that you saw in that film earlier today. We did deliberately choose these characters because they're well-known and well-loved, very likable characters, very relatable characters, but also we know from all the marketing research and marketing science that character-driven, narrative arc-driven advertising is most effective. So when you have characters, when they're telling stories, when they're engaging with each other, these are the type of marketing that consumers engage with and gets the most cut through and is most impactful. But in addition to telling that high-level sort of dreaming story and getting people thinking about and dreaming about their holiday, we also want to make sure that we're telling a depth of story as well. So we invested in content marketing and content partnerships with a variety of media owners so that we could tell the story of our destinations and different type of experiences around the country as well. And as we got into the Christmas period and in fact into the summer period, we didn't want people to forget that they could actually give an experience as a gift. So we encouraged Australians to give experiences over things, experiences that would be much more meaningful than just things after the year that we've had. So get out there and experiencing your country together with your family and have much more meaningful holidays. And over the summer, we wanted to remind people that they shouldn't just flop and drop with their summer holiday. They should get out there and actually make the most of the holidays they have and continue to have those wonderful experiences. At the end of January, of course, we had the unfortunate Northern Beaches outbreak in Sydney, which then cascaded into a number of lockdowns around the country. And that really did shake everybody's confidence, travelers' confidence around the country. So at the end of January, so moving into the sort of post-summer holiday period around Australia Day and into February, we invested in one solid week of unmissable travel content across all the channels that you could think of, from television to radio to outdoor, just to make sure that we were getting travel top of mind and rebuilding people's confidence and investing in experiencing that domestic holiday again. And actually the impact from that 1 week of investment and unmissable content was a 5% increase in consideration for domestic holidays. So we just felt it was important. And again, not just for consumers, but we actually wanted to make sure that the industry saw us out there supporting tourism as well, because it is such an important thing to be present and top of mind with our consumers. And as many of you would know, we also then started promoting cities at the end of, at the beginning of February. So we got Hamish and Zoe out of lockdown in Melbourne. We got them traveling about Sydney and Melbourne, and we told a story of the wonderful and amazing experiences that you can have in the city. And yes, our cities are safe, but you're still going to have a really amazing holiday, a really amazing experience as well. And we created some assets to make sure that we were covering the breadth of our cities. Let's see if this is going to play for me. There we go. So we created quite a body of content to help people start to plan their holidays. We refreshed our city guides on Australia.com to make sure that it had the latest information around each of our major cities. And of course, as you would know, we had our TANS program, the Aviation Boost program, that launched in April. So this was our holiday here this year, full-on holiday campaign. And it wasn't just about airfares. That certainly was, the impetus for this campaign. But we wanted to make sure that we spoke to the broader holiday messaging and the broader experience messaging as well. So as you see, we have creative up there talking about, great deals, full-on holiday. And we will continue to support that messaging ongoing. And then our epic holidays. So getting Hamish and Zoe out and around and getting them over here into WA, which was such a bucket list destination for them. And I don't have the
Australia.
Nope, we're not going to do that. You guys already saw that at the beginning. But this, again, is a multi-channel campaign. We find that all of our campaigns are much more impactful when we talk to consumers through as many channels as we possibly can. This is just a small selection of what we have covered, but we were also very happy to have beautiful Western Australia imagery very prominent throughout the campaign. I have to say I was very bummed to be missing out on this shoot, and I didn't get to go to the Kimberley and Pernalulu, but I have a trip planned in a few weeks. So I'll see you all soon. But if you do follow Hamish and Zoe's social media, you guys would have seen they pretty much gave us a whole additional social media campaign for the 2 weeks that they were out traveling around. They had an absolutely amazing time, and they captured all of their experiences, from high-end experiences through to more accessible experiences, affordable experiences, and they're still continuing to even promote today. So they've been really fantastic ambassadors for ourselves and in fact for Western Australia. Over to you, Robin. Here you go.
Thank you, Susan, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great, just echoing what everybody has been saying so far. It's so fantastic to be back in Perth. and reconnecting with old friends and making new. So looking forward to the networking later. But continuing on with the domestic theme first of all, everything that Susan's talked about, we look at how we can work with conversion partners, how we can take that dreaming and aspiration into visitation and conversion. We talk about it in 3 different areas. So we have our national partnerships, and that's ones that we work with as Tourism Australia directly, and that's the ones that are selected through a robust selection process, but picking the ones that can support and benefit as many of industry as possible. And really strong results for this financial year. So we've had 13 million room nights booked and 10 million passengers booked over that period. The second and really important one that we've got is working with our state partners. And I have to say it's been fantastic working so closely with Tourism Western Australia in this. Obviously, we're newly back into the space of domestic, so we had to find what was the right rhythm and right way to work in our consumer and partnership activity. And thank you to Darren and all the team for everything you've done in supporting us. So we've worked together in partnership. So we've taken some of our budget, some of Tourism Western Australia's budget to work together on state-specific activity. And then the third side is the Halo partners. And this is the one that I'm kind of most passionate about, because it's something that is available to everyone in the industry. And every time we do one of those campaigns, be it cities or epic journeys that we talk about, there's a toolkit available for you all to get involved. And of course, that's complemented by the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse on australia.com. So really fantastic ways for you to get involved in everything that we're doing. Pip talked about the Aussie Specialist Program, and we actually had never run this in the domestic market before, and we were actually a bit nervous about opening up to the domestic audience. We thought surely, travel agents here would know their own backyard, and we quickly learnt that we were very wrong about that. Yes, they had nowhere else to sell for this past pandemic period. And they have been focused, I'd say 95+% on outbound prior to this, but they have really embraced this platform. It's free, obviously it's available to anyone selling Australia, but you can see the stats there that this now represents our biggest market globally for the Aussie Specialist Program. One of the great things and a legacy thing we hope to come from this, from every crisis we always say there's opportunities, and for this one it's that when those borders do open back and they can sell outbound again, we know from our engagement, and I've met a lot of them and talked around tables with them, their education and passion and knowledge of Australia is so greater than it was before that we believe, yes, they're going to sell outbound again, but there'll be a bigger portion of domestic, which is a great outcome from this crisis. And turning it to business events, as Pip said, it's a big sector for us. From an international side, it represents 15% overall. It's big, and how we've kind of used this time to launch in the domestic space for the first time. Back in January this year, we launched Event Here this year, and that's targeting those corporate decision makers in Australia to not hold back and really get planning and booking in an event in Australia. So we targeted that through consumer advertising. So with Work Wonders for Your Business, it's really talking to them about the importance of face-to-face, reconnecting. And we all know, just being back here, how great that is. And it had great resonance with that audience. We reached 1 in 3. We surveyed and we looked at, and they said there's a 92% increase in them going to be able to do an event or planning and booking an event in, which is fantastic. That came through and was demonstrated in the business events website in terms of site traffic. And like that Halo partnership I mentioned for the leisure side, we created a toolkit that's available for the business events industry. And that's been downloaded more than 300 times. And it really shows how they're embracing this campaign. I'm sure many of you are in the room as well. So thank you for your support. And it's great to see this getting traction out there. 2 things that we've announced recently for the business event sector. The first actually is in the wrong section because it's an international focus, but the Bid Fund program. Pip mentioned this. We've extended it for another financial year, and it puts $3 million behind working in partnership with the industry, and it puts it behind securing future events, and that's a future pipeline, and we are still seeing demand and leads and interest coming through. And on the right-hand side, we launched, I think it was earlier this year, a boost program, which was basically the first time we'd ever done this in the domestic space. And it was offering the opportunity for applications to come to us from you in the industry to secure some of that budget so we can work in partnership to secure events through marketing. We've put another $1 million behind that for next financial year. Applications opened last Monday and they're open for another few weeks. So I really encourage you, if you want to get behind that and embrace it, please put a bid in. But moving on to international, and our strategy, as Pip has articulated, it's really about staying as relevant as we can during these time of closed borders. So it's maintaining that long-term demand. So you won't be seeing in any of our international markets the big above-the-line campaign like the equivalent of Hamish and Zoe. It's very toned for the time, and I'll talk you through a bit of that in a moment. But we're also very keenly focused on when those bubbles open, or cohorts that might happen in the future, something like a working holiday maker, which we'd love to see come back earlier, we'll be ready to go to really convert and support you guys as much as possible. But in terms of getting that tonality right in terms of the areas we focus on, both Susan's team and my team, on the consumer side, it's all about content. It's that right type of content that we talk about for that dreaming. It's social, it's PR. Our PR teams overseas have never been busier in getting content out there and really get cut through. Localized events and things that we can focus on there. And then being ready for those markets when they open. We'll show you a bit about New Zealand. And then on my side, it's looking how we bring that to life from a business-to-business side of things. And I'll come back on in a moment and give you an update on that, but I'll hand back to Susan.
I would add as well, I guess overseas, we do think it's important that all of our consumer work that we do, all the work that we do to try and make sure that we do stay top of mind and in people's hearts, it's equally important that the trade sees us out there being present and talking to consumers as well. So we kind of have that as one of our key measures, don't we? So some of the examples then around those channels that Robin talked about, I'm sure many of you would have seen the 8D immersive audio films that have gone out. These have been really extremely well received, and in fact this was one of those little sort of side projects that was developed by somebody in our team, and we saw the end product and absolutely fell in love with it because it was just such a wonderful way to give a little piece of an Australian experience to people overseas, you know, maybe when they're in lockdown themselves, and they can have a full audio and visual story. It's been seen over 200 million times, but even more importantly, it's had 74 million completed views. And considering that these videos, I think, are 2 to 3 minutes or so, that's pretty high engagement. And I'd say this is something that we are looking at, maybe a second phase of, you know, put it sort of a new creative spin on it to keep it fresh. We are also doing, it's slightly out of order from my notes, but that's okay. So we are in New Zealand. I'm just going to check real quick. Yep, we're going to jump to New Zealand. That's okay. So we are in New Zealand, and as Pip said, we were in market within, you know, probably less than 48 hours, and we wanted to lean into that. Well, the obvious truth that they are going to be the first ones to be able to enjoy Australia. So we're going to welcome them as our first international visitors, and the creative story here also then in our TVC, which I believe is next. You know, plays into that sort of friendly rivalry that we have with the Kiwis. I'm just going to let the video speak for itself.
Hey New Zealand, it's Oz here. This is hard to admit, but you're pretty good at coming first. I mean, you only conquered the world's biggest mountain, so we reckon you can handle the world's biggest reef. You beat everyone to Antarctica too, so go on, have the first icy beer off the tap. And it's hard to believe you guys were the first to fly a plane, but was it ever overstuffed like this? And that infamous PAV, okay, let's not get started on that again. But how about we give you the first bite of this? The sun may hit you guys first, but it really warms up by the time it gets over here. And if that's not enough, you adrenaline junkies showed us the bungee jump. But how about this to get your blood pumping? Or this? Or this? Or this? Or even just this. So New Zealand, isn't it time you added another first to your list?
That's right. So we're looking forward to welcoming as many Kiwis over as quickly as possible. So we also, before the borders opened both ways, importantly, we also went in and started a content partnership, and so that we could start to tell that deeper story with Kiwis. Often Kiwis think they know Australia, they know what we have to offer, so we wanted to tell them more about the depth and breadth of experiences they could have here. So this was another one of those initiatives that we did with our state partners as well, and this is again another partnership that we will continue on going forward. A few other things, I thought I just might touch on. I know my slides didn't pop up, but I just want to talk quickly about how important social media has continued to be for us. That's one of the key channels that we have used internationally. We have used both organic and our paid social media. We've tried to theme our social media posts around what is bubbling up from our research. So again, following consumer sentiment, understanding what type of travel they're looking for after the rough year that we've all had. So the themes that we've been focusing on have been around conscious travel, again around that point of sustainability, really leaning into nature and wildlife as well. We will continue to develop key pillars of messaging to make sure that our social media stays relevant and interesting and topical. And of course, we have one of the biggest social media channels in, literally the biggest social media audience in all of destination marketing. So we are always very hungry for your content. So please do share with us. Sophie is going to share with you, I think, all the details on our channels and how you can, the type of content that we're after as well. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Robin to talk a bit more about distribution.
Thank you, Suze. Hands up in the room who attended one of our Australia marketplaces virtually. Great. Thank you so much for supporting that. This is an event that we normally do offshore when you guys join us and we go into a particular market. We obviously had to change how we did that, so we went virtually with that. And to be honest, we were a little bit nervous when we put this out there because the outlook for borders, even back then, wasn't so positive. But I think you'll corroborate those that joined that. The sentiment we had from the global buyers that attended these in the markets we ran around the world was so positive. They obviously they were concerned how you guys were doing over here. They wanted to, many Australian specialists and looking to the future for when they could, send customers your way again. And that reconnection, just getting back, not writing businesses necessarily, but just we're a relationship business, people to people, and it can't go unnoticed that is exactly what these events do, and they really come into their own through this. Another sector that has another platform that's come into its own is the Aussie Specialist Program. So again, borders were closed. We've got in partnership with Tourism Western Australia and all the states, we run this program globally. We've got 23 people around the world that are working in it collectively. Again, we were thinking, what are they going to do? A lot of them are furloughed, a lot of them are stood down, on part-time, et cetera, They have really embraced this program, is an understatement, and our teams have really innovated with how they connect with this audience. So you can see there that of the ones that we've trained, so in a normal year, that team that we've got around the world train about 32,000, have training sessions, 32,000 attend. Financial year 20 was 82,000. So, and that was obviously predominantly in that last quarter from when the borders closed in March. That momentum, again, we watch it closely, has really continued into this financial year. The key outtake for all of you is that when we come back, we have a more educated army of Aussie specialists around the world that are better able to convert and sell Australia and really drive into that yield and dispersal. So we're really excited about this platform and engaging this audience when we open back up again. So business events, and back to that from an international focus, again, like we do for the consumer, it's looking at how we can do more of that dreaming content. We have the Australia Next magazine that we publish in 4 markets around the world, and really, pushing out that dreaming message. But also, this is also about conversion, because this is longer term events with incentives and associations globally. So we're able to lock that in, and we are getting leads, and we are getting conversion coming through as well. On the right-hand side there, one of the things I'm most excited about is it's called Australia Innovates. And this is a series of 6 short videos that we put together targeting the association networks around the world, those association decision makers. This is getting those big events into Australia. And as we like to think about it, a lot of people around the world know Australia is an aspirational destination. They know that we are great for nature and wildlife, and we will deliver on a leisure tourism experience, which is great for the incentive market. But for the association side, what we're trying to tap into is show that Australia as a destination doesn't just have the beauty, but it has the brains to back it up as well. So what I'd like to end with is showing you a little vignette of those videos and how they're coming together.
We've been building here in Australia a photonic ship, literally thumbnail size, that has unprecedented processing power.
This is cutting-edge new technology impacting the lives of patients across the globe, and this is from Australia.
We were confident that we could make this happen, but no one had tried this before.
We are moving into a world where the possibility of things being genuinely artificially intelligent is real.
Larvalbot is the world's first underwater robotic vehicle designed to restore the reef systems naturally.
We are the nation that unites other nations and brings them together to create new technology.
What we do is a bit of magic. We actually store information that's encoded in a light wave in a sound wave. This is world first.
Everybody knows Australia is a holiday destination, but they hadn't really appreciated that we were capable of something so impactful.
So there you go. So we're really excited about pushing this out for our international markets and grabbing some of that future business. So thank you for your attention. As I say, great to be back. Look forward to networking with you in the break. And I'd now like to hand over to Sophie Treasure, our Industry Relations Manager for WA.
Thanks, Robin, and hello, everybody. It was such an honour to meet you, those of you that were in Geraldton, after talking to so many of you via Zoom and over the phone over the last year. It's great to finally be back in Perth. So, one question we always get asked is how can we engage with Tourism Australia? And so there are 7 key ways that I'd like to talk you through today as to how you can get involved with TA. I keep wanting to say TWA. Firstly, our corporate site. So our corporate site is the home of our hub of information, and it's where everything is housed. So that's our first stop, I would suggest, in the first instance. But I'm here to help you. So if you can't find something on our corporate site, you can always contact me, and I can help you try and find it and get that information for you. And a lot of the things I talk about today will be housed there as well. So Robin just mentioned our Aussie Specialist program. For those operators in the room today, you have the opportunity to liaise directly with our Aussie Specialists. You can send through offers and industry deals and value adds that we can then promote to our Aussie Specialists throughout the world, both domestically and internationally. So you can send those through. There's a link that is on our corporate site, and you can just complete that form, and then we upload it, and then they can access that directly. There's nothing better than our agents coming to experience your products in person. It's the best way that they can sell what you do. The other opportunity is product training videos. I was going to show an example, but unfortunately it wasn't working before, but they're a great way to showcase what you do. So it can be simply a video that you film on your iPhone and you send through, and we can upload it, showcasing what you do and explaining what your product is or your accommodation, where you're located, and then that allows the Aussie Specialist to understand more about your product and then on-sell that to the consumer. As Suze was talking about before, social media. Social media is a huge component of our organisation, as I'm sure you're all aware. Here's some examples of what we've done recently for WA. And as Suze mentioned, we want your content. So we really would love anything that you do to send through. We have, as you can see, huge impressions globally, and it really is a massive stream for us that you can easily get involved with as well by using our hashtags. To try and assist with that, we have created some fact sheets which are available on the corporate site. These fact sheets really explain what we look for and who we are and who we aren't. So, there's a full breakdown of what they are and what all the streams are, what our reach is. So I highly recommend, if you do want to get involved with our social media, you have a look at these fact sheets and try and manipulate and use that within your own social media so that we can repost it in the future. And here's a couple more examples of what we've done recently for WA. There's Perth and the new Kalbarri Skywalk, which we all heard about in Geraldton. They're just some examples of what we do when we do repost some social media posts. Oops. And as Sue said, please share. So make sure you use our hashtag #SeeAustralia or @Australia, and always feel free, you can email directly our social media team, socialmedia@tourism.australia.com, with any content you may have. Another way of engaging with us on a regular basis is through our PR. So if you have any new launches, new experiences, anything like that, feel free to send them through to me, and then we can filter them into our PR team and our international media hosting team as well. And as you can see, we've had some recent examples of some write-ups about Perth, Fremantle, Ningaloo. And here's another example of where we are right now, the Ritz-Carlton. As Robin mentioned, industry events are a huge component of our organisation as well, and they have changed a little bit over the last 12 months. We're so excited about having ATE in Sydney in a couple of weeks, and I know some of you in here today will be there. We are having the live component, which is the face-to-face element, the 7th to the 9th of June, and then the virtual component, the 10th to the 17th of June. So those of you that are participating in ATE, you'll be in the middle of doing your preferencing. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask me. It is a big request to do 300 preferences, but it is worthwhile to make sure you get the most out of your appointment schedules. Another example of information that we house on our corporate website is research and insights, as Pip mentioned. We dip into the market on a regular basis, and there is a huge amount of research available on our website. If you want something specific, please feel free to contact me, and I can try and delve with our research and strategy team about what information we do have available if you can't find what you're looking for. But we also have specific market stats as well. So that's an example of our US markets, but we have one for each of our regions. Another example of us of being involved with us is the toolkits that we've referred to today. So whenever we launch a new campaign or a new iteration of our campaign, we also we'll send out a toolkit just to really provide more information about what the purpose of this campaign is and how you can be involved. So this is an example of the one we've just sent out today about our campaign that was launched. And finally, I just wanted to highlight this document. It is they are currently updating it, but it may be a useful guide for those of you that are preparing to go back into the inbound tourism market. It is the Tourism Export Toolkit that we work with ATEC to deliver. So they are in the process of updating this document, and once it's ready, they will circulate it accordingly. And the last thing is just to make sure you keep in touch. As I said, if there's anything new or exciting, or even if you just want to reach out for a chat and tell me what your problems are or how we can help in any way, feel free. I'm there to talk to any of you directly. Give me a call, send me an email, whatever you like. But my details are there. And if I haven't already met you, come and find me later, and I'd love to have a chat. So thank you. I would now like to pass on to Darren Belford from TWA to come and tell us all about what's going on with TWA.
Okie dokie. Technology-wise, do I have this? No, so I want to go back one. Thank you. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we're gathered today, the Wadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their elders past, present and emerging. I want to thank Pip and the TA executive for inviting me to participate today to share with you some of the key things that we are doing and planning for the next 6 months or so. This is my third opportunity since taking over as Managing Director to share with you our plans, and I hope you'll see a big step forward in terms of what we're looking to achieve. Earlier this week I was in Geraldton, and I had the pleasure of presenting at the Regional Tourism Conference. It was a fantastic event, and it reminded me how important the strong relationships that we have within the WA tourism industry are, especially in this time of COVID. So it's exciting to see you all here today, and hopefully again we can all network together with the TA people and ourselves to really move forward. Before I begin my presentation, I did want to acknowledge some exciting news that we had at the conference, and that was that the Minister launched the GINA Plan, which is the Aboriginal Tourism Plan for Western Australia, and a rollout of a $20 million Aboriginal Tourism Fund. We're really proud that Tourism WA is leading the implementation of that plan and of the initiatives alongside WATOC, the Aboriginal tourism businesses themselves and other government agencies. And we're really looking forward to bringing to light the vision from the plan. And that vision is to see WA recognised as the premier Aboriginal tourism destination in Australia. You'll hear more about this great development in the near future. I wanted to start by going backwards a little bit and giving a little bit of background in that it might take a bit to remember, but it wasn't very long ago that WA was riding the wave of success for tourism. Our 2019 stats showed us to be the envy of the nation in terms of attracting visitors and attracting spend. And we were on a very big upward trajectory for 2020. Of course, then COVID hit and things all changed. 2020 turned out to be a year of two halves. So these charts show the intrastate spend and visitor data from the National Visitor Survey. Spend is on your left, visitors is on your right, and the green line shows 2019, the blue line shows 2020 data. What you see here is that as WA opened up to the local travel midway through the year, we changed our marketing focus from the international and interstate markets that we usually focus on to the people of Western Australia. And our goal was really to encourage them to travel throughout the state, which was the purpose of the Wander Out Yonder campaign. What you see in this slide is the wander effect. So as a result of the pent-up demand of people not being able to travel and inspired by Wander Out Yonder, we did see intrastate travel surging. So those tourism businesses that were tuned into the local market generally did well in the second half of 2020, and we've heard many stories of West Australians who've travelled to new parts of the state away from their normal holiday places. However, we're keenly aware that the wander effect of West Australians travelling has not made up for the loss of the interstate or international visitors to WA. So for those tourism operators who do rely on the inbound markets, we acknowledge that the impact has been significant. These charts also show visitor numbers and spend, but these are for all domestics. So this is adding the intrastate and the international people together. And you can see that the 2020 blue line in this case actually remains below pretty much the 2019 green line right across the year in both spend and visitors. A few little upticks, they were school holidays in the spend. But we're also seeing a two-speed economy, depending on where you operate and whether you would offer tours or whether you would offer accommodation. For example, accommodation in regional WA is really impacted significantly less than in Perth, where the hotels focus much more and rely much more on the inbound visitor. And when we compare tour operators, of course, we see a difference again compared to accommodation. Because this is our home state, many West Australians will forgo taking those organised tours or visiting paid attractions. So there has been a job to do over the last year of making sure that we can encourage people like you and me, West Australians, to actually try those new places, try those new experiences, and spend their money on travel when they're in new locations. Now that we've seen inbound coming from the east in New Zealand, we do hope to see some improvement, particularly for Perth and particularly for tours and attractions. In fact, in my conference time up in Geraldton over the weekend, I visited the Pink Lake at Port Gregory, and I spent my time spying on all the visitors in the Lookout car park. And I was counting up how many interstate number plates there were, and there were a large number of plates, particularly from Queensland. So I'm hoping that that's a good sign for the future. Over the last 12 months or so, we have been focused on slightly different activities than the normal marketing and events, broadly activities that we have been involved in the past. We've been focused on support activities for the industry and also, of course, on stimulating Western Australian travel. I'm not going to run through this slide in detail. It's a bit of a snapshot of all the activities. But whether we were launching the Wander Out Yonder campaign or we were running grant programs or voucher programs, we've done this to actively address the issues as they've been identified to us. So, for example, Million Reasons to Wander, which was the voucher program, was specifically focused on getting those West Australians to visit tours and to visit attractions when they travel. While programs like Play and Stay and Save for the Perth hotels, that was about offering discounted midweek stays so that you can encourage the people of Perth to come into the city at times when they might not normally and put bed nights into our hotels. Excitingly, I think the interesting element of Wander Out Yonder campaign, it has really become the local vernacular. People here in WA talk about going for a wander. We're going to wander out yonder whenever they're talking about taking a holiday. So I think that's a really exciting format. It's got longevity to it. It is the largest intrastate campaign we've ever undertaken, and it is the umbrella under which all our marketing activity and all of our marketing support activity has been sitting. So that's our COVID journey to date. In October last year, about 2 weeks after I took on the role of Managing Director of Tourism WA, our executive and our board got together and looked at what we were going to do in the next 2 years. Pip was talking about a 10-year plan. We acknowledged that we need to be looking into the future, and we were calling it the light on the hill, but we focused on the next 2 years. And our goal was to regain our pre-COVID growth trajectory from the time of international borders opening. So whether that goal's achieved in 2022, if borders were opening soon and they were opening strongly and quickly, or whether it was going to take a little bit longer to achieve that goal, we set some targets or some activities around 5 key pillars for the next two years. And we had initiatives that sit underneath it. And this document originally was internal. It was all about guiding our activities. But in April, we've agreed as the board and executive to release this as a public document, and we will be putting that together soon. But broadly, those 5 key strategies or 5 key pillars were firstly to drive destination for a WA holiday by focusing on our brand essence, spirit of adventure. So the Wander Out Yonder campaign was the first domestic campaign to sit within the Spirit of Adventure program, while our international markets have all been kept warm with our Adventure Awaits campaigns. We're looking to re-establish our place as the Western Gateway to Australia through our aviation links. At the Geraldton conference, it was exciting to hear the guys from Qantas talking about the London-Perth route being one of their most successful international routes ever, and how much they're looking forward to being able to re-engage that. So we're very focused on coming back to that Western Gateway to Australia. In our experiences and events pillar, we want to focus on attracting new private sector investment in terms of developing new attractions and experiences. We're looking at blockbuster events. The winter of events that we had in 2019 really showed you how important it is for events across Perth. And we want to make sure that WA is the premier destination for authentic Aboriginal tourism experiences. I mentioned earlier that we're very focused on sustaining and having a sustainable tourism industry, and I showed you a lot of programs that we have been doing to make sure that the tourism industry in WA was still here during these difficult times, so that when the borders open up and visitors start coming, you are here to welcome those visitors. We've got plans for workforce, which the guys at TA mentioned is one of the important and difficult areas right across Australia, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And the final area is we wanted to make sure that we have a high-performing Tourism WA. I'm really proud to be the current Managing Director of Tourism WA after having been with the organisation for more than 12 years, and I lead a really passionate team. In these difficult times, we've adapted our activities, but we've also adapted our structure, particularly around our marketing teams, and that's all aimed at making sure that we get WA to the top of the travellers' wish list in this extremely competitive environment. So that's our broad 5 pillars, but we recognise that within every 2 years there's lots of really important things in 6 months periods where we've really got to focus on some specific activities. So the question we were asking ourselves in April, so a couple of weeks ago, is what can we do here and now to drive immediate bookings for operators? And we've got 5 key areas. We're going to restart our markets, we're going to restart our aviation, we're looking to address some of our short-term workforce issues. We want to keep attracting events to WA as these are time-specific reasons to travel, and we will continue to develop our new brand for Western Australia. And I'm going to go through all of those very quickly in a moment. But the 6th focus area that sits below that line is crisis support. So whether that relates to activities to support the tourism businesses in the communities affected by Cyclone Seroja, and we were focused on that when we were talking to them in Geraldton this week, or what is needed to recover from the Perth and Peel lockdown that we had just a couple of weeks ago. We will also be focusing on crisis support activities as they are needed. So looking at restarting our markets, our immediate focus is working at the bottom of the funnel. We're looking to drive bookings out of the eastern states into your businesses and getting people to commit to travel to WA. So this is where we're working very closely with our trade partners. So that includes the airlines, travel wholesalers and retailers. On this slide, you can see an example with Flight Centre that we've just run. In terms of supporting all of that bottom of the funnel activity, of course, we also need to be at the top of the funnel. We need to be encouraging and inspiring people to travel. So it will be in market with paid media on a continuous basis. When we last met, you might remember we spoke about our radio campaign that we launched in January, but we found that that was fantastic, but we had to keep pausing our activity every time there was some changes to border controls, and that was due to the immediacy, the perceived immediacy of the message. So we will go back with our radio campaign when the travel environment settles down. But in the short term and in the near term, what we're looking at now is focusing on magazine articles written by travel journalists so that we're actually an advertorial. So we're really getting that approach of providing that detailed depth of information about WA, which enables us to showcase what we have to offer. So this always-on approach, alongside the tactical trade, means that we're focusing on building confidence, re-establishing our presence in the market, and hopefully driving bookings into the businesses. Here's a few of our current and recent campaigns. As I said, these are all about driving bookings, but we're also focusing on our high value travellers and our high yielding travellers, and that looks at that top of the funnel work that I spoke about, so the travel journalists. That sort of work enables us to position WA as aspirational destination and have those bucket list experiences. Interestingly enough, when we open the borders, there's a lot of people coming straight into Western Australia. We know that a lot of that is led by the pent-up demand of the visiting friends and relatives market. And a bit like West Australians who don't tend to spend much when they travel around WA, a lot of visiting friends and relatives in the past would not do so either. So we're very focused on encouraging those VFR visitors to get out and about, to go and spend on accommodation, on tours and experiences when they're here. Our second priority is restarting aviation, and of course in the international market we've had a huge number of routes coming in from when we were all open in 2019. Our aviation team has been actively having international conversations with all of the airlines. Of course, the travel arrangements, the border settings, those will be the things that will drive which markets will open first, but we need to have those important conversations on an ongoing basis. As an example of how that works, when Air New Zealand was looking to come into WA, they were considering 3 flights a week. But it's through continued negotiation, through commitment to cooperative marketing activity. Last month in April, when Air New Zealand started, they moved straight up to 6 flights a week, looking to come daily. So we see this as a significant win. It's about the ongoing relationships, which the guys from TA were talking about, the importance of keeping warm those relationships, and it justifies the ongoing activity with the airlines. Now, we do expect international air markets to take longer to recover. Interestingly, in the domestic market, it's a little bit different. opportunities to grow regional and domestic routes have actually come to the fore. And again, there's a lot of conversations going on. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those in a minute, but we've got unusual things for us, you know, whether it be Newcastle to Perth or conversations about how to get people from the east directly into Exmouth. There's a whole lot of conversations going on at present that we're really excited for those opportunities. In addition, we've got cooperative marketing programs in place with all the major airlines. You saw that earlier slide where I showed you the Jetstar campaign. That ran in March and April, but we've got campaigns with each of the other airlines that will be running very shortly. In terms of capacity from our aviation partners, at the conference this week, the Qantas representative told us that both Qantas and Jetstar are expecting to exceed their pre-COVID capacity into WA by the end of this year. I like to think that that's in part due to Jetstar starting the flight into Busselton, from Melbourne to Busselton, which starts next month. I say that because it's an outcome close to my heart. I've been involved in working with Busselton Airport, getting it redeveloped and ready for accepting interstate flights since 2011. So it's taken 10 years to get the first flights up, but I'm really excited about the opportunity. If we look at the interstate aviation market, well, actually, that's really strange, but not unexpected, I guess, that it's been very resilient. And the FIFO market in WA has pretty much gone back to where it was prior to COVID. But to support the tourism industry, you'll be aware, and hopefully you've been aware, that last year through Tourism WA, the government funded more than 5,500 discounted fares to Broome and Kununurra. They sold out in record time. So this year we've released 50,000 affordable fares to Exmouth, Kununurra and Broome, again to encourage West Australians to take those trips further away than they might do with their cars, and they're selling out really well as well. So I'm very excited to see West Australians taking the trips that they might not have done in the past. The big issue that we all mentioned is the workforce shortages. There are acute workforce shortages, particularly in regional WA, given that we don't have the working holidaymakers and the backpackers that usually make up a good proportion of our workforce. What we're seeing is operators running at either reduced capacity or else they're operating at such a pace that they're exhausted and can't take the breaks that they need for themselves. So we are working on some short-term fixes. None of them are a silver bullet in their own right, unfortunately, but we're hoping that they provide some reprieve. So, for example, we're working with TAFEs to upskill local people so that they're job ready, and we're linking those students directly into the operators in that particular region and town. In Perth, we've run 2 Job Connect programs where there's something like 24,000 international students still here in Perth, and many of them work, but many of them don't. So we've been looking at how to encourage them to take holiday and part-time work in the hospitality sector. In terms of the homegrown workforce, actually that's where the future needs to lie. We know that we need to be able to encourage more West Australians to get involved in the tourism and hospitality sector. So through the GINA plan, we're looking at increasing Aboriginal participation in our sector, but we're also facilitating careers expos with students, and we're introducing the successful Chef Ambassador program in high schools. We've done this over the years off and on. We've been in and we've been out and we've been in and we've been out, but we're going to be running this on an ongoing basis from now on. This is a program which takes successful young chefs out of the kitchen, takes them into secondary schools and gives cooking demonstrations and industry insights to inspire the next generation of chefs out of our high schools. The fourth area is around events, which of course are that compelling time-specific reason for people to travel. It's incredibly important in our overall strategy that we bring visitors to WA, spend longer, stay longer, spend more, and events are a really important part of doing that. Unfortunately, event participation or the event environment has become more challenging, both riskier and more competitive. So our immediate focus is on looking for what event opportunities can we get? Can we retain the events that are already here? And how can we pick up displaced events? I'm sure you're all aware, I hope you're all aware, that at the moment in Margaret River is the World Surf League event, and straight after that event will be the Rottnest Rip Curl Pro. Usually the surfing has 4 tour events in 4 different places, but through COVID and the constraints that entailed, they were looking for a place to put 2 events. So we have 2 events and 2 events rather than spread them out. And our relationship was such that we did get the 2 events for Western Australia, and New South Wales had 2 as well. These events are fantastic in terms of significant media coverage, news coverage. Unfortunately, when it's on in Rottnest, you can't attend and spectate, but it is a media event, so there will be opportunities to see the online streaming of all the great experiences. And of course, the one thing we do when we do media events and have big events with lots of media coverage is we contract into it videos, vignettes, experiences that enable people who are watching to see what Western Australia is really like. So unlike here where you just see Perth with the tennis, but actually if you're watching it on the news, there's a whole lot of inserted content that enables us to inspire people to visit Perth. The 5th area that we have is around our brand. When everyone can travel again, we really want to make sure that WA stands out from the crowd, and we've done a huge amount of work to ensure that it sets us apart as a must-see tourism destination. Now, many of you will have been familiar with Guy Taylor through the workshops that he facilitated in 2018 and 2019, and this was the first stage of our Story project. Following on from those workshops, we conducted consumer research that suggested a number of tweaks to the campaign, and then we came out in April of last year, April 2020, with Our Story, The Spirit of Adventure. So this document here, which is 80-odd pages, sits on our website. This is the Spirit of Adventure. This is the brand foundation for Western Australia as a tourism brand. It's that sort of quintessential, enduring, never-changing core of our brand. It's what we used to drop down to our first campaign. So Wander Out Yonder is the domestic campaign that sits under the Spirit of Adventure brand platform, and the Adventure Awaits is the international that sits beneath that brand platform. Obviously that one relates to the inability of visitors to come, but we're still linking through to the core platform. Since we've launched, we've been working to translate that Spirit of Adventure into all the destinations and regions. So far 17 workshops around WA, 500 people have participated, where they're looking at defining where their particular destination and sub-region, how that fits within the Spirit of Adventure, and what are the experiences that warrant promoting to people to encourage them to come into their regions. You might have seen a media story today that talked about the lack of definition for brand in Perth. And so while the city is sure to have broader interests, and the Lord Mayor was talking about the need to stamp his presence on the Perth brand, we are focused obviously on the tourism element. The City of Perth is looking at broader business and retail, but our work will feed into their work. So we actually have a deep dive session scheduled for the end of May, where we'll be looking with key stakeholders for the city on how our capital city will be defined under the Spirit of Adventure. And we'll continue to work with the City of Perth to make sure that all of our state tourism marketing complements what the city is looking to do for their destination and for their broader audience than just the tourism audience. To tie everything together, we will shortly be launching a new brand design guidelines so that our collateral and our marketing will start to look and feel different to what it looks and feels now. It will look and feel more like an adventure brand, which is aimed at targeting those high-value traveller audiences. And there'll also be new photography rolled out into the image library very soon, again aligned to the Spirit of Adventure. We've got new social media approaches, we've got new websites, all of those coming in the coming through till the end of 2021. Lastly, and I've got that last on that list over there, is our new global brand campaign. We will be launching a new global brand campaign, but our focus at the moment is on tactical. It's on encouraging the people from the eastern states and from New Zealand to come here. And that tactical approach is really important. It's not the right time to launch a big, new, bold brand campaign, but we are linking through with all of the new work we're doing to actually move towards being able to launch that when the time is right. In normal non-COVID times, you usually do a lot of these things together, and you get your brand platform and you get towards the brand campaign very quickly. Because of what we're doing, we're rolling things out on a more uniform basis, but the campaign will be ready to go when the time is right. So that's me. I'm hoping that my short presentation inspired you to continue working collaboratively with us. Like TA, we have things on our corporate website, places where you can go and find out more information. I've got a lot of my staff here as well today, so please do link with us in the break, and we'd be happy to help you any way we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I think we've gone a bit longer than we'd planned, so we know that we're holding back everyone from going out and having a drink and a talk, and I've also been told that if you have a drink in your hand, you can take your mask off, so that's a pretty big incentive to get outside. But are there any questions that you might have for Pip or Darren before we go out? Otherwise, everyone from TA, Pip, Darren are outside, so thank you for joining us, and we'll move outside. We might just play a video, I think, as we're leaving. We played a video, I think Pip played a video of when we asked people around the country what they thought of 2020, and we've got a video of what their hopes are for 2021.
The one word that would best describe our hopes for 2021 is stability.
Can I use the word hope to describe my hopes for this year? I think that's the key word, hope. I think everything revolves around that. We want to think good things, and hopefully that will all revert to, open borders, that security factor, that sustainability factor, all coming into play.
Hopes for 2021, I would say opportunities.
One word for 2021, balance.
Community.
Gratitude.
Optimism.
Confidence. The confidence to be able to face this challenge and the challenges that will come.
For the tourism industry, the one word I'd describe for the hopes for this year is togetherness. Remaining together, supporting each other.
The one word that I would use would be optimistic. Really hopeful and confident for the future.
For 2021, hope.
Resilience. Pragmatism.
Opportunity.
Conservation.
Stabilisation.
Optimism.
Stability.
Yeah, I'd like it to be 2 words: safe and exciting.
2021, one word, it's hope.
So thank you. We'll put up a barcode on here if you want to scan it on your phone and give us some feedback on the session. I think one is we need to think about timing, so we get to Q&A, but give us some feedback, and now join us for a drink outside.